Welcome back to the Winded Podcast. I'm your host, Seamus Sullivan, and make sure you are following the podcast either on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or Amazon. Check out the Instagram at Winded Pod, and my TikTok is Seamus_Sullivan. But today on the show, I have a certified personal trainer, also puts out some very informative fitness content that is not just attention grabbing and false information like you see everywhere else on social media. Today I have Nezzie Thomas on the show. Nezzie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
I am very excited to talk to you. Like I said before, I've been wanting to talk to a personal trainer, and just, summer's coming. People are getting back into the gym. I feel like there are 2 points in the year where people really hit the gym, and that's New Year's resolutions, but that kind of fades off pretty quickly. But then it's, March, April, May, getting ready to get on the beach. So people start getting in the gym. Are you seeing gyms any more crowded than usual?
Absolutely. Especially all the college students are graduating right now. Everyone's free time's kind of opening up. It's nicer weather. They're a little bit more motivated. It's like night and day between a month ago and today.
Yeah, it's been on my list to get back in. I've been getting out doing more walks, walking the dog. I'm getting more active, but I haven't quite jumped into the gym quite yet. So I'm hoping that talking to you today is going to give me that extra motivation. One thing I did leave out on the top in your intro, I know it said your name, Nezzie Thomas. Thomas is a very famous last name in this area, especially if you are a fan of the team that I am wearing on my hat right now. Nezzie, you have a very famous father. Why don't you say who your father is?
Yeah, my father is Tim Thomas, the 2011 Stanley Cup winner, the goaltender, and Conn Smythe and Vezina winner as well.
That is very it's just crazy that is your dad. I do actually want to say because and I didn't tell you this before because I didn't want you to leave. And I have to hold myself accountable because I have friends and family that will call me out if I don't say this. I have to admit, your dad was not my favorite player. And I would And part of it is I was a big Tuca guy and would go back and forth, and I kind of just established myself as like the Tim Thomas hater, and that has faded over the years, I will say. So I actually wanted to take this time to bury the one-sided beef with your dad and just say, I want to clear the air. I want to say thank you for 2011. Although I did thank him at the time, I was very grateful. um, but yeah, I think I'm looking at the last 15 years of the Bruins, and I think there's been a curse, and I think that it's because of my one-sided feud with your father. So I want to bury that and put that out there and say I am so grateful for 2011 and everything that he did. And I'm just truly grateful that he's back kind of in the spotlight in Boston. Seeing him wave the flag must have been very cool in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad to see him back as well. He had a lot of resentment for the sport for a really long time, and I know he's been out and outspoken about that for sure in interviews and things like that. But recently, it's been a lot of work of me and my family of telling you like, hey, the people want you back, right? Of course, you have to want to get back out there, but it would be so appreciated. And every single step that he takes, I mean, all of the events that he did during the centennial, any game that he's attended this season, anytime he's waved the flag, we see the appreciation and then he feels the appreciation and he tells all of us that. And he's so happy to be back and in that circle because that the circle is just one big giant community, right? Like him or not, you kind of have to respect him, at least if you're from Boston, right? And he feels that, and I feel like he really exemplifies it. He's really humble, and he's actually looking to continue getting his name out there again.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, and we'll leave all the politics and everything aside. But it was a stretch of time where it was like people didn't know where he was. He was just didn't appear, didn't, wasn't around the Garden, wasn't at events like some of the other Bruins alumni are. And, getting him back out because he truly was such a huge, I mean, he was that run. He was so important and has meant so much to so many people. Seeing him back, like, I remember the first time I feel like I even saw him was on that Zoom during the pandemic when the Stanley Cup team got on Zoom, and that was great to see him laughing with everybody, and I don't know if that kinda opened the door for him to make more appearances, but it's just great for somebody who, you know, is so appreciated to feel that appreciation again, 'cause I'm sure when he was away from it, he probably didn't feel it.
Yeah, absolutely, and when he kind of fell off the face of the earth a little bit, I mean, we were located in probably 15 different places during that time. Everything was so all over the place, and so he just didn't feel connected to anywhere, and that call was actually really pivotal for him for sure, because it got him not only connected with, the sport again and the fans, because he knew that that was a live call, but just to be in contact with that team, right? To just connect with them again, and I think that really did push him to, uh, be a little bit put a little bit more responsibility on himself to connect again, and I think that's one of the reasons that we might have ended closer, to the East Coast, so that he had more access and was able to make the smaller steps that he needed to be able to get back into the spotlight in the industry again.
Yeah, everybody talks about whether it was Tiger King or the Chicago Bulls documentary that kind of was their highlight of COVID that, like, got all the attention. That Zoom call with the 2011 team was, like, my favorite thing during the pandemic. I remember just sitting there watching it for hours and just, like, felt like I was on the call with them, and it was just so cool to see, and was very, glad that your dad was a part of that. But I do wanna get into your work as a personal trainer. We talked about it before, that people joke, your dad was a professional athlete, so naturally you would become a personal trainer, and we joke that, your dad, although he was a elite professional athlete, he was not throwing the weights around that you are. So what kind of, obviously it probably played a part, but what led you to fitness in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. I have talked about this a little bit on my social media for sure, is about this whole idea that I grew up in such an athletic environment that it was oh so natural for me to grow up with these strong behaviors and habits, specifically in training, nutrition, just overall wellness. And that really just wasn't the case. I always joke about how my dad ate Burger King before every single game, and it became a superstition. Like if he didn't have his Burger King, he wouldn't play well, and and he also refused to lift because he would get too big, and so that's the environment I kind of grew up in. I was allowed to play any sport I wanted and anything like that. So I was always athletic, but it wasn't enforced on me. It wasn't. I No one expected it to go anywhere. It was just kind of a part of the lifestyle. So it honestly wasn't until I got to college that I got into actual weightlifting and strength training. I played hockey for like 10 years. I played boys hockey for like 10 years. So I was always in an environment that was a little bit more masculine, I guess, and a little bit more, it valued strength. And then I switched into gymnastics, which is very muscle heavy, and just having a good base. And then I actually was supposed to play college tennis and I tore my rotator cuff. And everything in my life kind of went downhill my first few years of college, just partly because I had lost my energetic outlet. I didn't have tennis anymore. I didn't have hockey anymore. And I needed something that I could just divert my energy and effort towards that wasn't academics, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what degree I wanted to get. And, the basic struggles of any 19, 20-year old in the US right now. And a friend of mine recommended weightlifting when I was at a really low point because I was sitting around all day. I was just having a really hard time emotionally. He was like, it's just really good to kind of ground yourself and create goals that are only centered around you and not anybody else. And I said, oh, okay. So I slowly started getting into the gym. It became something that kind of became a ritual for me. If I was feeling anxious, throw in an extra gym session because I could put on my headphones, block the world out, and call it a day. And then as my mental health was pretty low at the same time, it was helping me cope, but it wasn't obviously fixing any of these problems. And I started really becoming a victim of all of the misinformation and social societal influence on social media. Uh, I decided I wanted to go into a sustainable cut that was not sustainable. I cut down to a really, really low and unhealthy weight, and I stayed that way for a really long time, thinking that it was just a product of my discipline, right? I was doing everything quote unquote correct because I looked good. I felt better, but physically I felt horrible, but mentally I felt, "Oh, I'm locking in, I'm taking care of myself." And it wasn't until I went through the process of realizing and recognizing that that wasn't a sustainable way to live, becoming more informed about nutrition, seeing nutritionists, therapists, things like that. It wasn't until I kind of got a more broad perspective of what health looks like until I started realizing, oh, I love talking about this. I love talking about what I went through. I love talking about this through an athletic lens because I was always in athletics. And I just eventually decided that it was something I wanted to pursue. Um, Technically, my degree is in marine biology. That was like my first love. Uh, but when I graduated, there's just not a lot of funding and not a lot of opportunities. And I think it was the perfect push to take it in the personal training route into something that could be real and feasible because I had that time and that energy to divert to just the training and just the education I needed to become a trainer. And so it was a really, really long path to get there and path to get to health. But I also learned so much and specifically about balance, being able to keep your discipline, keep your consistency, create routines to fall back on while still living a normal life where you can, take a weekend off and you can enjoy your life and enjoy the things you love. And I think a lot of that also came just from growing up with my father and watching him as well. Because he didn't live the typical athlete life, and that's how I was surrounded. And so I saw the contrast, right? He lived a life that it was very not non-conformative when it comes to training, and I tried to conform every single part of my life to be ideal and optimal for training. And so I kind of found this middle ground and found how much that I, loved helping other people find it.
I think that's great, and it's a message that's definitely not spoken of enough when it comes to fitness, nutrition, and everything. And I think it's great that you put yourself out there, and you obviously you're in very good shape, you're very strong, and you don't just post like the after pictures of you like after the workout. Like you will put you'll have little messages about balance, and I think balance is definitely a theme of your page. And, like the other day you posted something about how, everybody's so protein crazy when it comes to eating. And it's okay to just have like fruit and carbs or whatever. Like, just if that's what you need or that's what you want at that moment, like, you don't have to worry about throwing a steak in the mix just to get protein or like have to, force yourself to have protein. I think messages like that are not told enough, and I think that, somebody who could follow you, and if they're trained by you, I think they're gonna have more success because there's more possibilities for what you can do because you're not as restricted. Obviously, discipline and everything is a factor, and there needs to be some guidelines. But I think, being told like it's okay to have this or it's okay to do this if you're doing this the other times, which I think is just a great thing that you showcase that is not shown enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like nutrition's obviously the perfect example of that because our lives are not set in stone. It fluctuates so much and varies so much based on our environment, what we have access to, our cravings. Our bodies are also not machines, right? They're systems. There's we just vary so much in our needs on a day-to-day basis to follow some cookie cutter plan, it's not going to work physically or mentally. And that was one of the biggest things that I noticed from consuming media is it was just trying to shove all of these ideas of things I had to do down my throat. And as someone who likes control, I took all of them and tried to enforce all of them. And it wasn't until I had learned that lesson and realized how horrible I felt that I realized that I would rather die than put that out there. Put, like, ideas of "you have to" out there because everything is a choice, and everything is going that choice is gonna be based off of how you feel, what your life looks like, your routine, what you have access to, and, like, so much of these factors have to do with enjoyment. Life is short. I'm not gonna go tell you to drop every value you have because life's too short, right? You can definitely support yourself, but if you're doing anything on a daily basis that makes you unhappy for any reason to a point where it's infecting your everyday life, then that's not a healthy habit, you know? And so those ideas of not restricting and not holding yourself back, I think are the most important and actually the definition of balance because it's all about making educated decisions based on more factors than just what's quote unquote good for you biologically because the science isn't even clear on most of that anyways.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I want to ask when you are, whether it's seeing people on social media or whether it's working with a client, what is kind of something that people have in their head that's wrong or a misconception when it comes to fitness and being successful in a fitness journey?
I personally, I think the biggest one on my mind, at least lately, has been this idea of an ideal outcome physically, like aesthetically in your body, right? Everyone seems to think that working towards a goal in fitness has to end with you either being super lean or super buff or, just some sort of visual cue that says you're succeeding, and that is just not the case at all. Everyone's going to have different goals, everyone should have different goals, everyone's body's different capacity to change is going to be very different. Not everybody's life allows an entire 180, right? And so I think the biggest uh, piece of misinformation out there is just this idea of a transformation. Yeah, aesthetic goals can come with what you're working towards. They can be very pleasing. That's um, everyone's going to be able to relate to that. I'm not going to say that every single body is healthy, but if your body is capable and physically healthy, then those physical changes either might be too drastic, unhealthy, or simply not necessary.
Yeah, it can. I mean, it's obviously it's good to have a goal or something that you want to get to, but if you're too focused on that single aspect of it, one, it's discouraging that you're not getting there fast enough. But two, you may never get that, and if you're working towards it and the goal is to work towards it, you're going to be more successful. But if your goal is like, I want to be, absolutely ripped, can see through my shirt, like six pack, like, yeah, you can get there. But like, if you're too focused on that in the beginning part, it's going to make it that much harder to get to because you're fixated on the wrong thing. Instead of what you need to do to get there, you're just focused on the end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the better way to articulate kind of what I just said is like aesthetic goals are secondary, right? They're something that are incredibly satisfying and can come with putting effort into taking care of yourself and a health journey, but they also shouldn't be your primary drivers and you shouldn't expect them to happen. Another thing is a lot of people, I'm going to say specifically women just because I'm relating to myself, is you see all these other women with the bodies that you want or desire or really want to work towards. And I'm sorry, but their body is not your body. It is very unlikely that you will ever look like them, even if you had the same amount of muscle mass, the same amount of body fat percentage. I mean, any physical metric you don't have the same genetics and so you're not going to look like them. So if you have this like idea of what you need to be or need to look like at the end, you're never going to achieve it because you're never going to be satisfied because you're never going to fit the criteria that you've made. And so I think just one of my biggest focuses, I guess, as a coach is just that idea of capability. Are you able to move? Do you feel strong? Uh, are you noticing that you have more energy throughout the day? Are you more confident because you know that you can do these things? I think that those are just so much better measurements of success than look, I've gone down an inch in my waist. Like, yeah, that was bound to happen because you're taking care of yourself. Like that, but that's not the focus. I'm really happy for you, but we're also not going to focus on that as your wins for the week, if that makes any sense.
No, it does totally. Another thing that I think is common, and you actually touched on it on your Instagram story this morning, was, you know, you're going along and you're working out and you're in a good routine, and sometimes you go to the gym and you just don't have it, and it's frustrating. It's you feel like you're not making the progress. How do you get through a workout that you know in the first lift that you do, you're like, I don't have it today, but I'm here anyways?
Yeah, absolutely. I struggle with this a lot, especially in the past. I'm much better at handling it now, clearly. I'm a level 10 perfectionist, right? So if I do all of the things I'm supposed to do before a lift, making sure I get in balanced foods, making sure I have a good pre-workout, for me, it's having a moderate amount of caffeine because that tends to really help me personally and how I feel in the gym. And when you just feel off, the biggest thing to recognize is that your body is not some machine to fix. It's a system that's constantly giving you signals, and it's not perfect because you can't account for every single signal or every single factor that's going to um, influence your energy levels, your output levels, right? You may feel energized, but then you go into that lift and it's just not quite moving. And I think the biggest thing is recognizing that your body is only going to give as much effort as it feels safe to at the time, right? That can be food, that can be sleep, that can be stress levels, all of these different things that could influence your performance for the day. But regardless, you can't go into the past and change those factors. Your body is existing in the state as it is. And you kind of have to say, okay, how much can I utilize what my body is able to give in this moment? So, for example, this morning, I made sure that I kept all my weights consistent so that I knew that I was still pushing myself as hard as I could, but I also if I was gonna fail a lift, I wasn't going to blame my body for it. It's, "Okay, you know what? I pushed to absolute failure. I did everything that my body felt safe giving today." And that's how you know that you are in control, right? You're not letting it, influence you. You're not letting it take over your emotions. It's, "Okay, this is the reality, and this is what I'm going to do with it, and I'm going to make this productive." And I think that's one of the biggest mindset shifts is just that idea of you can only do as much as you can do in that moment, and you can't go back and change all of the factors that put you in that position. The only thing you can do is be better moving forward if you know what influenced it. For me, it was probably lack of sleep. Guess who's going to bed early today? It's little shifts and little things and just becoming more aware of what your body's trying to tell you and accepting that as fact instead of accepting it as some I guess like kind of villainizing your body and oh why is it doing this to me or why do I feel this way? You'll beat yourself up if you try and figure it out like that. You kind of just have to meet your body where it's at and move forward from there. There's only one way to go and it's forward, right? And it's never going to be perfect.
It's a good reminder, and I find when I'm working out and I have one of those days where you just don't have it, your mind immediately goes to, well, now I'm not moving forward. But it's good to know that, you just being there and putting in whatever work your body can do that day, you may not be setting a personal record, or you may not, be lifting more or whatever. But just the act of doing what you did that day is still moving you forward, even though you haven't it may not feel like it in the moment, and so that is a good reminder that I definitely need to tell myself every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other idea too is that you can think of this idea of to push through, right? Today I happened to push myself as hard as I could with what I had. But there also, if I had decided, you know what, this isn't the day, my body's really not doing this, I should take an extra rest day. There's also no failure in that either. Because every single sign that my body gives me is just data to collect and recognize. And just that mindset of I have to be building, building, building. Well, your body does all of its building in rest, right? Putting the stress on your body, if your body's telling you that it's stress, the stress is already there. So you need to take a step back, reevaluate, let your body figure everything out and attack the next day as you can, you know?
You obviously, you take pride in, your own strength and physique and everything, but how much pride do you get out of seeing the success of your clients? Like, what does that feel like as somebody that, that you work with for a while and, that moment that they really start to see results or that, you notice them or they notice them? What's it like for you, and how does that compare to your own successes?
Every single one of their successes is just as much my success, not to take away from them, but every PR that they hit feels like I just hit a PR. Right? Because I'm when I hear someone's story and I help them get past things that they're struggling with, whether it be fitness or mental health or nutrition, like I become a part of their process. And so, and their journey. And so watching them get a win is honestly more satisfying than when I receive a win myself. Um, you really learn to connect with people when you deal and are like work within the health space, and watching someone progress from ground zero or actually wherever they start, right? They could have been consistently lifting or just had a few little hiccups to straighten out. Regardless, watching them through that whole process, I mean, in my opinion, it's like raising a child, right? And my coaching is set up so that I don't want you to be coached forever. You know, I'm here to help you figure out your kinks. I'm here to help you create consistency, create a system that helps you feel like you can fall back on it. Um, and then I'm here for support whenever you need it. But watching them build that kind of independence, it really feels like you're raising someone to a level of themselves that can carry them forward. It's like setting a bird free, if that makes any sense. It just reminds me of the work that I'm doing and the empowerment that I'm providing. Again, it's not to take away from them because they're doing all of the effort, but if I can be the guide that allows themselves to be real with themselves and meet themselves with reality and work hard to better themselves. I mean, what better society is there than a society full of people who want to be better and for themselves and for others, you know?
Couldn't agree more. What is an exercise that you think, or it could be a set of exercises that people maybe ignore or don't give as much attention that could really help improve their overall health and kind of fitness journey? Comes to mind, I feel like a lot of people just skip over legs and I used to be kind of the same thing where I'd rather do bench press every day or do curls or do whatever, like the more like fun or the ones that people feel like do more. But it is when you do work in legs, for me, it's like, oh, that actually does make so much more of a difference to the overall health. But what would you say is the most kind of neglected exercise that could really benefit someone?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's a particular muscle group because I feel like every single person is going, not every single person, but many people will exclude a certain muscle group based on the goals that they have. For a lot of people, it tends to be legs. For a lot of women, it tends to be upper body. So I guess it wouldn't really be that specifically because it's so varied. But the one thing that I would say is mobility, especially in a weightlifting space, in a strength training space. When you build muscle, your mobility tends to it's like a seesaw. You build more muscle and your mobility becomes a little bit more limited, a little bit more limited. And part of it's just size, part of it's tension. Uh, and mobility is honestly what keeps your body actually healthy and strong, making sure that you are completing all of your exercises through the entire range of motion. I have an entire, like, one of my rest days is technically a mobility day where I just stretch my body out and loosen it up because in your everyday life, your movements aren't rigid, they're fluid, right? You want to be able to move in all planes of motion with ease and still have the strength to support yourself through those movements. And if you want to talk about longevity too, overall health and for lifespan, if you look in some of the places on earth that have the longest lifespans are people that just move occupationally. They're not training in the gym every day. Yes, training in the gym is great and strength training is fantastic. But at a fundamental level, the absolute best thing you can do for your body is just move it in all ways consistently. So I think when it comes to the training space, particularly, people tend to lose sight of just what gets them through life on a day to day. And I think that that's one of the biggest missing pieces that would prevent injury, prevent strain, prevent uh, just, yeah, their overall motion, especially as they reach old age, because muscle doesn't do much if you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, the popcorn muscles.
Exactly, exactly. No, I was just gonna say, like, I used to be a gymnast, right? And a couple of days ago, I went to an open gym for the first time and I did some tumbling and I posted about it too. And I was just amazed at myself for all of the things that I could still do and the skills I still had. Yes, some of it was muscle memory, but I was really afraid of being able to move my body in those ways because I haven't in so long. But I also have been consistently keeping up my flexibility, mobility, and I could feel the muscles that aren't normally used the next day. They were they were definitely worked, and I realized, obviously, I'm not gonna go tell everybody, "Hey, go do backflips and things like that. That's your mobility training," because that's standard and that's not normal. I'm not gonna do that in my everyday life. But it just kinda reminded me of what movement truly requires, and it's yes, it is the big muscle groups, but that's not all of it, because if your body doesn't have the strength to support those larger muscle groups with the smaller muscles, then it's just I mean, you can't use them. Not long term.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when you posted that of you doing all the flips, I was shocked. I was like, you're obvious like I said, you're very strong and you're very, muscular and everything. And I know gymnasts are strong by nature, but I was just like, did not expect you to be able to do what you did in those clips. It's very impressive, especially if you haven't been doing it recently. But it's always kind of surprising when you see somebody like you, and then it's just like, "Oh, shit, you could do that too?"
No, and I was just as surprised as you are, honestly, because the last time I did tumbling, I was a foot shorter and 100 pounds lighter. So
You still got it, you still got it. Um, I do wanna I have a couple more Tim Thomas questions that I have to ask. Where is the Conn Smythe and the Vezina trophies? Or where are they?
Uh, well, like, I honestly I don't know. We have, like, replicas, right? I could not tell you where my dad keeps them. There's, like there's trophies all over our house, all over. It's insane because you see the big ones. You see the Conn Smythe, the Vezina, the Stanley Cup, but not all of the little ones that he won through the Bruins just for being, um, I don't know, for being Tim Thomas, for being the 7th player and all these different and then
Yeah,
we've
he
got
was I mean,
ESPYs in
I know he was
the
7th player.
yeah, we've got ESPYs in the office, and we have don't forget he played abroad in Finland and Sweden too, so we've got a bunch of trophies from them, and it's yeah, our house is basically it's funny because I used the word shrine in that video, that went viral with my dad in that kid's room, and I was like, "No, our house is basically a shrine to him at this point."
Yeah, I mean, over his career and everything that he amassed, I mean, even like you said, the big ones, and then there's the small ones where he was probably, Eastern Conference Player of the Week or Player of the Month. Like, I'm sure they send something for that. And, um, I always wonder, there's people that build these like full on rooms or cases that have everything. But I feel like just him, I could see you like going into a garage and like in a box there's just like the Vesna trophy, just like it's like, oh yeah, like I won that. Like he seems like it's this, thing that would be a centerpiece in everyone's home. Like you walk in and it's the first thing you see, but I could see him like it being like in the kitchen or just like, like hanging stuff on it or it just being like another thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like that for a long time. Now we have the most, the little things. Obviously, he likes the reminders of how hard he worked, but they don't have like the as much sentimental value and as much monetary value as well. So all of the most important ones are behind lock and key now, as the family was like, dude, you can't just have that lying around. Um, so the most important ones are tucked away. I don't even know where they are. Like he keeps them nice and well hidden, but there's reminders everywhere, and that is definitely our house for sure. Things are what forget what type of trophy it was. I think it was one from sometime in college. We literally used it as a coat rack for years.
Yeah, that's it. Just it seems like that's the type of personality that he has, and that you guys literally need to knock some sense into him and be like, no, this is like they give one of these out a year. Like there's only been, the NHL's been around what 100, like there's only been 100 winners of this, and you have one. Like it's more than just like a coat rack. That's funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's definitely one of the most
What's like the typical? I'm sorry, he's one of the most what?
I was just gonna say he's probably one of the most humble people I know in that regard. Just because he thinks of himself as a regular person, so for him to have uh random trophies lying around, he's like, "Yeah, I won them, but it's not a big deal." And we're like, "Okay, you keep telling yourself that."
What's the typical response when you do tell people that, if you say you're in the Boston, I mean, just I'm sure all of New England, when that comes up that he's your dad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Specifically in New England, it's always just the wide-eyed, like, "No way," kinda thing, and then it just comes rolling in questions because I think that's the best thing about the Boston sports community is the amount of respect that they have for their athletes as well. Like, yes, you're gonna find some people that are just crazy fans and they just, like, some of their excitement, you're like, "Okay, calm down. Calm down." For the most part, it's just questions. They wanna know where he is now, what he's doing, what he's been up to, how he feels, what he's doing in the future. They just kind of treat him as a guy that they love and respect and want to see more of. So I will say, at least in the last couple of years, I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of the reactions because they have a much more mature response than what might have happened when maybe the cup year or a couple years after. They're not as obsessed and more curious and interested, and I appreciate that for sure, especially as the daughter, because to me he's just my dad, you know
Hmm.
he's just a guy I see him every day.
Yeah. So you were probably what, 5 or 6 years old when they won the cup?
I think I was 7.
7.
Yeah,
So
I'm 7.
do you remember the day with the cup?
I do. I actually I when they won the cup, like, the night they won the cup, there's a bunch of pictures of me in the corner crying because I wanted to be there and I was not at the game. We had a watch party at our house, and we had a nanny because my parents were gone all the time. Uh, and my nanny was trying to calm me down the entire time, trying to give me the reality of, like, "Your dad just won the Stanley Cup," and little me was not having it. And it wasn't until, they brought the cup to our house and we bobbed for apples and it had cereal in it and, like, did all the cool stuff that I was like, "Oh, my dad's so cool," but, the night that they won, in my headspace, I was not having it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine my dad winning the Stanley Cup and having to watch it on TV, and being like, "I should be there," and so I think you're totally valid in that response.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and my sister was there too, so, the jealousy, whew, top tier.
So your sister was in Vancouver?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that makes it even more. I totally get, like, you know,
exactly.
yeah, that's tough,
Now
but
I'm not so bitter about it. I get it. I was 7. That was
yeah.
not necessary for me to fly, I think they flew, like, the night of, and it was yeah, no, I get it now, but no, I do remember it very, very vividly. I remember everyone's reaction. I remember watching the TV and watching my family celebrate on the TV. That's something I'll never forget. I'll never forget the excitement on my dad's face as well, because even though I was really young, I still watched him go through everything. I would say me and my dad have always been pretty close. Uh, I guess not always, but in terms of we were always communicating with each other. I was always calling him while he was gone. I was definitely a little bit of a daddy's girl, especially when he was playing. Um, so I remember watching him go through so much and watching him win was uh let's just say one of the drivers for how I approach my life now, for sure.
I mean, I remember, I mean, I was 21 years old, so, like, prime, like, the best age you could possibly be for, like, your team. Like, the Bruins are my number 1 team, so to be 21 with all my friends, uh, and, you know, before that, it was I'd never even seen them get to the East Finals. Um, Winning the cup was something, even, you know, grew up playing hockey, watched the Bruins, was just a diehard fan. Really didn't ever expect them to win it just because it's just that's just the Bruins. They just don't win the Stanley Cup. So that was just such a core memory for me. You know, and then going to the parade. Were you on a duck boat for the parade? Did you get to at least do that?
Yes, yes. I was right up there with the whole team. I remember that pretty well too, and, uh, that was that was the first time I truly felt the Boston energy for sure. I mean, obviously, that's next level. That was a celebration that no one's ever gonna forget. Uh,
A
but
million
it
people.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. But that energy really, really sits with you, and it lives with you for sure. Uh 'Cause there's no way to not feel it and not get just as excited as the fans, even though it's obviously a little bit more personal for someone like me, but in that moment, I was just a fan of my dad, the team, everything. Um, and yeah, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, it was a very special day, and I can only imagine being 7 years old up on that boat and looking out at all the crazed Boston fans and just I mean, I'm pretty sure I cried at the parade because it was just like it was the first time I'd ever seen the Stanley Cup in person as it drove by, and it's just like just a such a, you know, for a hockey fan, Boston fan to see that was just something that, you know, and I've grown to appreciate it more now that thinking like, "Oh, we're gonna win this all the time now. We got over the hump, and here we are 15 years later and still don't have another one." Come close a couple times, but, really puts in perspective how special that team was, how special the run your dad went on, and, you know, how it's just viewed as one of the best, if not the best runs for a goalie ever. He's the he's the reason when, you know, when the playoffs start, people point to the goalie and they're like, if you do this, you have a chance to win it. So it's just got to be so cool for your dad to have that legacy even 15 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another huge thing for me too is, like, I when you grow up with a dad like that, it's yeah, okay, my dad's just a good player, but you don't realize the actual standard that he's setting for goalies and he's setting in the sport. And so having his legacy live on 15 years later is I get to watch that. I've watched the progression from he's good and people respect him to he hasn't even been in the hockey world and people respect him almost even more now, right? And so I get to see truly the legend that my dad was now instead of when I'm 7 years old and can't really comprehend it. And so, I appreciate it, of course, and as much as I love the Bruins, a little part of me is kinda happy when they lose in the playoffs just because I know that for my dad, his legacy does live on, and it really just speaks to how much of an impact he made on Boston and the sport.
Yeah, no, that I mean that makes total sense that, you know, it with each passing year that they don't win it or even come close, it just shows, you know, how hard that trophy is to win, um, and then, you know, to win the Vezina you know, to tie it all together in that one year was just so special. Um, yeah, it's gonna I don't think you're gonna have to worry about anybody, taking it from them anytime soon. I think that they're a couple years away.
Yeah, I'm thinking the trend's going the same way, but each year, you get your hopes up. It's like, "Oh no, what if this is the year?" And then it's not. You're like, "Whew, maybe I shouldn't be exhaling, but I'm exhaling a little bit."
One other thing I gotta ask you, and I'm sure you've seen the memes of it or the the picture. I feel like it goes viral every once in a while when your dad was in Dallas and he had the Florida pads with the Dallas and the like I don't even know what that helmet was that he was wearing, and it was just like it was such an ugly aesthetic that it was actually awesome. But what was is that just more to the personality that your dad has that he's just like, whatever, I don't care what I look like when I go out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, yeah. He liked the pads. At that point too, he had had a couple of concussions, and so he was feeling comfortable where he was, and he just wanted to get through the season. And so he really said, like, "I'm comfortable here. You're gonna have to deal with it. Looks aren't everything. Let me save what I'm gonna save." Um, and I definitely that's one of my biggest things that I admire about him is he really just doesn't care. People could say anything about him, and he'd take it to heart in terms of like if he was hurting somebody else, he would change it. But if it's just an opinion, it rolls off him like it's nothing. And he's like, yeah, okay, I like my life. Goodbye. And that's just the ultimate mindset, especially for someone who lived in the spotlight. Like I think that's crazy and that he was able to do that. And yes, I see the memes. People send them to me all the time. I feel like half of my DMs are just videos or pictures of my dad in the past, and I see that a lot, and it does remind me of just how real he is. Again, he is just my dad, and if he had showed up to beer league like that wearing pads, no one would care, but because he was, people were gonna say something about it. He didn't care, and I think, yeah, that just speaks a lot to what he stands for, like, who our family is now. Yeah.
I just think it's funny that I'm pretty sure he was like playing against Florida wearing the Florida pads and like in the Dallas uniform. But hey, it worked for him. And especially when you're dealing with, concussions and, wanting to stay safe, you want to wear the equipment that makes you feel the best. But I had to talk about that because that's it's just an iconic picture that will just continue to surface because you'll probably never see anybody pull that off ever again is to wear another team's colors, yeah, obviously, like, he was traded, so there was you're not gonna just have the Dallas pads ready to go, but, I feel like any of the goalies today would just wear something neutral and not wear especially the Florida Panthers have such a distinct color scheme and completely clashed with the green and black of Dallas, but so funny.
Yep, yep. No, and that's another reason that keeps him so real is one of his biggest things, when he was talking about changing pads and stuff was money. He's like, "If I like them, why would I pay for another pair in a different color? No, that's ridiculous." And I was like, "Fair." You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I mean, you know, he did I don't know what his earnings were, and he obviously didn't get paid like the guys do now, but I don't think he was hurting for money at the time when he was having to buy pads. I think he could have afforded some pads if he wanted to, but I think that just goes to what you said about his humility and the kind of person that he is. That he's like, why would I do that?
Yeah, he's he's never been one for looks, so why change now?
All right. Well, I don't know. After talking to you, Nezzy, I don't know if I want to go to the gym or if I want to have Burger King. Both sound good. After hearing your dad and having Burger King before every game is just it's inspiring. I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know what I'm all I'm gonna say is as long as you know what is in Burger King, if you wanna eat Burger King as a pre-workout, power to you.
Sounds good, Nezzy. Where can people follow you? Where can they reach out to you if they want help with coaching? I did sign up for your email newsletter. So where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram and TikTok primarily under Nezzie Flex. I have a coaching application that you can fill out on there, and we'll set up a free consult call, have a little chat about your goals and what you want for yourself. And then I just released a brand new free navigating nutrition guide for people in fitness that you can access via signing up for an email newsletter, where I'll be sending an email about all of these fitness revelations that I find throughout just being in the wellness space and kind of debunking all of that influencer talk. And so I'll be sending emails every week and just putting all the information I can out there.
Love it. Love it. All right, Nezzy, it's been so good to talk to you and meet you. We'll definitely do this again sometime, and I might have to actually fill out an application and get some one-on-one training because I definitely could use it.
Yeah, absolutely. My door is always open. I love every part of what I do.
Love it. Thank you so much, Nezzy.
Yeah, thank you so much.